Hey guys, welcome back to Tethan Props. So I'm going to show you how I made my Gondor Helmet. So I printed this on my filament printer. I'll put a link below to the 3D model that I used. I didn't make it myself, but you can buy it for yourself. So I started printing this. I probably could have printed it in one single piece, but halfway through when switching out the filament, I accidentally hit stop instead of pause the print. So I lost the print halfway through. So I started just cleaning off the supports on the first print, and a really good tip is that when you're using a knife, always cut towards your hand, because if you slip, you're going to have the knife go into your hand rather than the 3D print, so it helps protect the print. So once I'd removed all the 3D supports from the first bit, I had the second bit on the printer already. So that was the top section of the helmet. As I said, I probably could have printed this in one single piece, but because I pressed the wrong button, I had to print it in two. So getting prints off the 3D printer is really easy. Just get a nice sharp chisel and wedge it in there and it pops straight off. I had both my prints ready to go after that. As I said, I had to print them in two pieces, which means they didn't line up perfectly because I had to try and guess where the print ended. So to fix that, I had to sand down a little bit of the top one. So I marked out where it was, took it out to the belt sander and just started sanding it down until I had the right amount removed that they fit together nicely. It was time to start joining them, so I used a two-part epoxy for this because I want it to be a really strong join. For normal prints you can probably use super glue, but I used two-part epoxy for this one. So I just put it on both edges, put them together and let that solidly dry before I touched it again. So now it was time to start smoothing out the join between the two prints. So this white powder that I have here is actually 3D printed dust. So when I have my resin 3D prints and I'm sanding them down, in the enclosure that I do it in, it creates a lot of this white powder. So I collect it up, put it in a bag and use it for such purposes like this. So what I do is I put it in the cracks and then get my super glue and put a fair bit of super glue on there. And what this does is it dries really strong and hard and means it helps form the bond between the two prints and also fills in the gap. So I just went and did this across the whole perimeter of the helmet where the join is and just made sure that I didn't have any gaps. So once you've put enough super glue and 3D printed dust over the whole thing, it's time to start sanding. So you just go through, sand it all back, and then if you need to, go ahead and repeat that process. So with the join between the two parts really smoothed out and looking good, it's time to start smoothing out the whole helmet. So the spray I have here is a filler primer. So this is what you'd use on a car when you're redoing painting and removing some big scratches, because it's a really thick spray paint that builds up in all those small grooves in the helmet and helps fill them in. It dries really hard, which means it can then go back and sand it down. So this is a constant process where you spray on the spray putty, go back and sand it, spray on more spray putty or filler primer or whatever one you use, and then go back and sand it. So you do this over and over until the print is super smooth over the whole helmet. This can take a lot of time, but it's really worth doing this right. So once you're happy with how smooth it's looking, it's time to start painting. So with any silver object that I paint, I always start off with a gloss black undercoat, and this is a really good base color for any silver. So once the black is dry, it's time to go back with the silver. So I use a light misting of chrome silver, and this on top of that gloss black turns out really well and makes it instantly look like metal. You don't want to go too heavy with this silver, just light dusting. So the next stage is to start weathering it. So I get a black acrylic, water it down a little bit, just cover it over the whole helmet and go back with a paper towel and remove the excess. And what this does is just build up that black acrylic paint in all the nooks and crannies and really brings out some dimensions to the print. And And after the first pass of a black acrylic wash, you can really notice the difference. So if you want more dirt and grime build up on the helmet, you can go back and repeat that process as many times as you want. But I stuck with just one pass because I wanted this to still be a little bit clean. So after you're happy with your dark wash, it's time to start doing highlights. So I use a Tamiya chrome silver paint and use a dry brushing method. So this is where you get a little bit of paint on the paintbrush, dab most of it off on a paper towel, and then just go over all the raised edges and add scratches and highlights to all those pieces. Doing this really adds an extra dimension to the helmet and makes it look real. So I just went ahead and did this over the whole helmet. After I was done with the helmet itself and I was happy with how that looked, it was time to start working on the inside liner. So I got a piece of string, measured out how long the circumference of the helmet was, and cut out a piece of leather that was long enough to fit on the inner parameter. I then started marking out the wedges that I wanted to have for this liner, and then went ahead and cut them all out. After I had all the shapes cut out, I then hole punched holes along the ends of each of them so that I could thread them together and make the inner liner for the helmet. So once I was happy with it and it fit perfectly inside the helmet, it was time to start gluing it in. So I just went around using super glue and just tacked it in place. When I was happy with exactly where it sat, I went back and did a full super glue around the whole perimeter. So after I was finished with the inner liner of the helmet, it was time to start working on the chin strap. I had a few pieces of leather as well as a harvested strap from a handbag. So I cut up that strap from the handbag and got the parts that I needed from it. I then used a pot rivet gun to secure the chin strap together. With the addition of a couple hole punches on the other side, the chin strap was done. So to glue the chin strap in, I just simply used more of that super glue and just glued it on the inside. Now that I had the inner lining chin strap of the helmet done, it was time to just give it a quick dark wash. The same method as I used with the outside of the helmet, so ward down some black acrylic paint, smother it over the whole thing, and then go back with the paper towel and take off any excess. And with that, the helmet was done. And that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this build tutorial of the Gondor helmet. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. Be sure to check out my other videos because I really enjoy showing you guys how I make the props that I make. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next one.